the 14 verses from Luke 2 that describe the angels and shepherds. All right. I want you to think about this question as I read. How does Luke's placement of the shepherd's visitation impact the entirety of his gospel message? And why do you think that is? Okay, so here we go. Clear on the question you're going to be pondering? All right. Mm-hmm. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. In that region there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. For see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favors."
That was a big deal.
It's a big deal. So if we talk a little bit about why Luke might have chosen, he's the only one who tells the story of the shepherds, right? Mark doesn't say anything. John doesn't say anything. Matthew doesn't say anything.
Well, Matthew's too busy talking about genealogy.
He's got a different role to play. That's exactly right. So why would the shepherds be important to Luke? If we think about Luke's entire message, his entire gospel, the people that he writes about, the stories that he chose, the lowest of the low. Thank you, Judy. That's right. Shepherds would be kind of the, they made the world go round, because without anybody watching over sheep, there wouldn't have been any of them.
That's right.
Sheep don't tend to stay together on their own. They need a little help, or a lot of help.
He's just letting us know that the lowest of the low is important. And all us ordinary people join in.
Yeah. I think that is important for Luke. It's important for him to tell the story that from the very beginning, this was not a king, a Messiah, a
Jesus
Savior,
came to serve,
like others, right? And we've talked about this, and we've seen this and talked about the idea of the shepherd king, right? This is what who David was. Remember, David was chosen by God from afar, Samuel, looking out over or Nathan, good grief, I can't even remember now. But anyway, looking out over all Jesse's sons, and he takes the little guy and says, no, that's it. Not those other guys, not your other kids, just David. That's the one, the shepherd, the one who was out in the field. So throughout time, we've got this idea of what's important to change, has it? Go ahead, Kate.
No, I was saying you froze. I was just
Sure I have.
going to say that the people that were the shepherds are the ones who were going to reach more people. They didn't all necessarily have any baggage or anything to worry about except taking care of the sheep. And we're so often referred to as sheep ourselves that it seems logical that he would want those people to know the good news also.
Yeah.
They were like the protectors, and that's what we're looking at in Jesus.
But Jesus is our shepherd.
So I thought what hit me the most is that not just the shepherds, but even more so, Jesus was born in humble beginnings and so forth. And that set the tone to me of his ministry because of who he was, and who he portrayed as, more so than the shepherds and that sort of thing. So, because if he'd been a more normal king and gone to the shepherds, wouldn't have the same story by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly. And if we think further down in Luke's story, who is it that comes next to visit the baby? Kings.
Yeah.
The people we call kings, right? So just that whole reversal. And throughout Luke's gospel, that's that whole reversal,
Yeah.
right? That's the good news. I mean, it doesn't take long to get there, because in Luke 4, you have Jesus in the synagogue saying, I've come to proclaim the good news to the poor, to bring sight to the blind, to do all the things that a king doesn't usually care about.
But he's bringing it to everybody.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Well, who needs it the most?
Maybe
Probably.
the rich people.
Maybe they do.
That's a new thought.
Well, I don't know if you will, because our internet is unstable, I'm unable to connect through my laptop where I was going to project. Because one of the things I thought was interesting, that if we looked at different artist representation, because it's been very widely.
But it came out this morning in the.
Yeah, it did.
Everybody's got access to it.
So if you have in your, I sent it out this,
It came from.
Carrie.
It came from Carrie.
It's he.
And it's,
Yeah.
it's just,
You
it
need
was
to.
a Zoom
I
link
wanna
you went on to. It had all these pictures in there.
you might have to go there and get it, because I am not able on my unstable internet. So I want you to be able to see them. Because part of it is that so many artists have shown this picture, what they call the Annunciation or the announcement to the shepherds.
So it's under who? It came out under what?
Came out this morning from Carrie, our communications person. And it was telling, there was one email for this, and it gave the Zoom link, and that's how you probably got in with her Zoom. And then she also had an email same time about what the Advent session today, or
Right.
so they were right together. Yeah.
Huh. I missed
Oh,
it.
yeah, but I'm looking.
Probably came out
About 9
9
o'clock.
o'clock, I'm gonna say, something like that.
Did you,
Same one with the Zoom invitation, and it says class materials.
Yeah.
I think she says
But
class
it's-
3, but
Huh.
it's actually class 4.
Class materials.
If you hit
Yeah.
class materials, that's where you'll see these photos.
Okay.
And you may have a favorite one that isn't even listed here. I tried to choose some that were both available and didn't have things running through them.
Mostly they were available, right?
Yeah, right, that would be it. That first one, Angels Announcing the Birth of Christ to the Shepherds, is an English artist, and in the National Gallery in England. If you can see it, it's not as big as it. I think the original artwork is like 5 times this big. So you would see that you could really hone in on the shepherds' faces, which is the part why I chose this.
Fearful.
They were very fearful. Yes. There isn't anybody who looks excited.
Well, one guy's kind of asleep.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. Right, some are asleep.
Let's see.
So in that lower right-hand corner, most of the angels are, and then on the other side in the lower left, there's one looking up toward them whose face looks more like astonishment. It doesn't seem to be affecting the animals at all.
Which is so.
Do you think that, yeah.
If I'm on on another phone, and it says Church of the Good Shepherd, and then it has, the Advent book study. Should her pictures be on here too?
No, not that one. There's another one that came at the same time.
Well, yeah, if you go down, same email, you should see where you can,
I think she's on the Advent lesson.
But on the Advent devotion, scroll down, that says class material.
I think it's the
It came in at 8:00.
8:00.
8:00.
Okay,
that'd be 7 o'clock your time. Oh, no, 8 o'clock.
You find it, Lawson?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
I'm at 7:10, 7:07. I'm getting earlier here. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'll just listen.
I really want you to see it. I could forward it to you, Kate.
Kate, it says week 3, but it's actually week 4.
Just because we like to keep you guessing.
I did see that go by.
Okay.
Okay, that's where you need to be.
You're in the right spot.
It says Advent book study week 4 is what mine says.
That's right, but down at the bottom of that paragraph, it says class material week
Yep.
3.
So it's in,
Punch that.
yeah, click on that.
Do you want to download Angels for?
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly what you need to do.
I see angels. Woohoo! Not just the one from the
All
screen.
right, okay. Well, we're gonna consider this a Christmas miracle.
You might with me, with my warm hand alone in this room.
All right, so we're on the first picture now. All right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
On Angels Announcing the Birth of Christ to Shepherds by, I don't know who that guy is. I've never seen any of his work, but Govert Tunitzflick. So we were just talking about whether none of the shepherds look excited. They look a little terrified. One looks amazed. It's not affecting the sheep at all. They appear to be doing their very sheep things. There's also a couple of other animals in the picture. A dog. Maybe is that a cow?
That's a cow.
A cow's rump there, you can see?
Yeah, it's got horns.
Yeah.
Goat.
And a goat.
Gone into a stampede.
Goats and sheep don't normally get along. So that's an interesting rendition by the artist. They eat differently, and one doesn't leave food for the other. So this is or cows. Cows eat with their tongues. You know, they wrap their tongues around the grass. Sheep eat with their teeth, and so they go down to the very ground. This is why ranchers and sheepers never got along, because the sheep pulled, right, left nothing for the cows to wrap their tongues around. So anyway, it's interesting, right? So
For that.
oh, I don't know. Useless information that's only good in a bar at trivia
You know,
night.
but that's something valuable. So.
Well, right now, it filled a little bit of space for it. But-
Well, and it's valuable, but that they're also calm.
They are,
Because if you've ever raised animals,
yes,
the cow would have just taken off in a stampede.
right?
You need sound.
So perhaps there's a connection here to what we call the peaceable kingdom, right? Even though this is painted before that, this was painted, I don't know, 17th century,
The lion
and
be
the
at
lamb.
attention.
will
Yeah.
lay down.
right?
Well, I would guess that the appearance of these angels and the light associated with all that would change things a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Even for a cow or a sheep or whatever. I mean.
That's right, they would have taken off.
Yeah.
So something, and so it wasn't like they put NyQuil in there, to keep them all calm. All right. Anything else about that that you particularly identify with? This is like reading a short story and then having everybody chime in on what they think. It's going to be as varied as your own opinion is. That's good.
Well, maybe my eyes are just not working, but I can't see Mary and Joseph in the baby.
There isn't. They're in there.
That's the shepherds and
They
the
came to
people.
see the shepherd.
This is
The angels came to see the
This is
shepherd.
out.
Oh, I see. So, because I'm looking at what's, I don't know, sort of looks like a little hut there, and I was thinking maybe they were supposed to be in
No, this is just the annunciation to the shepherds. So this is just that they have to go. It's a good observation though, Lynn, because sometimes you do see them all together in a picture, right?
Yeah.
That the thing, so this is showing them just the shepherds in the field, not yet moving. They hadn't done anything.
And it does.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking
That
like.
would not be.
Okay.
That would be. I don't know.
All right, let's go to the next page that has two pictures on it. One is Thomas Cole, who's an English artist, would have been a later artist, and the other one is Bertram, who was from the early 17th century. So let's look at the first one, where you see the single angel in the upper left-hand corner. Looks like shepherds are in various states of repose there, kind of in the middle of the bottom. This one's kind of on his. It looks to me like one is prostrate on the ground, and then one standing, and you see the star over the stable.
These were the two that were sleeping, and this was the guy that was on watch.
Right, that's exactly right.
The guy in the middle looks like the same.
Yeah.
Well, they just woke him up.
Yeah, we'll walk that too.
But it has similarities in the last picture because the angel is shrouded in light. You know, it's coming in light. We cannot see because of the size of this painting, as I've copied it, their facial expressions, right? And then again, to Lynn's point from the last picture, here it does show the star over the manger, right? Way over there. That's the Thomas Cole. That's an English artist. That's all I know about him. And some very fat sheep.
And not very many.
Not there, but on the ridge over, you'll see that in kind of the middle of the picture. There's also a ridge over. More sheep look like they're gathered over there. I appreciate Kate's trying to look at this on her phone.
Well,
All right. All right. The Bertram picture then below that. Tell me what you all see in that.
I see the same dog that was in the
Yeah.
first picture. The dog.
The dog in this picture looks like he's, kind of crappy. The animals are all still very calm.
But in those pictures, the dog's tail is
Tough.
tucked.
Yeah.
But those aren't happy dogs.
You know,
No.
Dog
This
looking
one's
up
really
to see what's going on.
And what about our shepherds?
it's the angels that are just fascinating to me.
Oh, good. Say something about that.
Well, I mean, there's the lovely angel in the front on the clouds. But then there are baby angels just floating around in circles that are,
Who's the
I mean,
cherubim?
you sort of get the idea. I mean, my first thought was, gosh, is that, I mean, I know it's not, but what Jesus would look like as the angel coming down or something. I mean, he's gorgeous, the little boy in the front, and they're all going toward him, and the other angel that's singing, I don't know, I'm sort of mesmerized by that little circle of angels floating.
Yes.
In this bottom picture in the bottom hand right, is that a picture of a woman holding a baby
Yes.
in the red?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where?
that could be a shepherdess.
It could be, or it could be Mary, but it would be unusual. I mean, usually Mary doesn't have red on, in typical kind of way, the way
Oh,
they
wow.
did it. But it could be because oftentimes, like from medieval art onward and art of the Renaissance, so forth, they might have the whole story told. Even though it might be a story specifically about the angel visiting Mary. In the background, there might be two hills with crosses on them, or there might be a star in the sky, or there might be, there's just other pieces that tell the story, even though the focus of the story is the angels, and are the angels announcing to the shepherds that this baby has been born and where they're going to find him. There could be other things that sort of also tell the story. There could have been other pieces foretelling or giving, what's the word, foreshadowing, right? Foreshadowing different things. But these shepherds seem more receptive than some of the other shepherds we've seen.
This picture is very interesting to me because that white angel is kind of doing the message and looking down. And then above him, that other angel is looking up. So it's kind of like, you know, you can tell this is really coming. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the one that's kind of on the second cloud up there,
Right,
yes,
looking up.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're getting this message from up here.
yeah.
Well, I also see Joseph asleep, typical father next to Mary.
See?
Wake me up when it's over.
All right, now here, this Annunciation to the Shepherds by Bassano, who I know was an artist, very, not different in a sense, but different focus maybe. See what you see on this one. This is the one that has the angel in the center, a shepherd boy with a sheep in the middle. To the left, a shepherd really like maintaining eye contact almost with that angel. And then, of course, I guess because we have been fixated on the animals, there's a cow.
It's back. The shepherd almost looks like he's milking the cow.
He's got he might be, I don't know. Oh, I thought that was a piece of rock. Maybe that is not.
It's a cow's head.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Look
Maybe
at
they were
the
keeping
picture.
warm.
See, I didn't even see this shepherd over
And-
here.
The
Isn't
red
it-
guy in the red or the guy in the
No,
the one
look
that-
at
with that, with next to the cow,
Yeah.
steer,
Above the cow.
next to the steer? He has horn. Cow.
That's the steer.
Isn't it interesting that it, above or below the angel is a whipped up ocean?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, there's chaos in the world. And here the angel is announcing that there is someone who's going to save us from all this chaos.
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
see that as an ocean.
You
I
saw it
see
as
how
a
you
mountain?
See it that way. But
Yeah.
you see-
I see it as a
mountain. I see a mountain that's covered with clouds on the top.
Huh.
Me too.
The blue part under the white looks like a mountain to me.
It does, but I also like the idea of a rolling,
Yeah.
as of
Just a
a,
little bit of rolling water.
yeah. I love that, Lawson, the idea that coming into the midst of something uncertain and unstable, which the world is always, that these angels are proclaiming peace. That's part of their message.
Mhm.
The angel proclaims peace.
If that's the ocean, maybe that's a giant octopus where you thought it was a rock.
Oh,
Well, this is on subject, sort of. I had a priest one time that did a sermon. He did it on the low Sunday after Christmas, talking about all the animals that were there and how they all are people that you know.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And, you know, I look at these, I mean, you know, the people that are sort of cows and what the definitions of cows are, and who do you know like that, and the lambs and the donkeys and the, you know, all the people that you know, and how they're all pictured in these pictures of the stable and the shepherds. And it was interesting because we know a lot of them.
But you were right that there's a very different angel. This is not like the angels like we normally think of, like the one that's on the top of our Christmas tree here. This angel has a more youthful face, a more childlike face,
Yes.
a cherub.
like a cherub, right?
Mhm.
Then the child there seems to be calm in the middle.
Mhm.
Yes. But is he holding a lamb?
It's hard to tell from this terrible representation on my piece of paper, so.
Well, maybe the lambs and the animals are calm because they don't really understand yet what this birth means, just like a lot of people. Well, most of them didn't understand what it meant.
Because there's somebody's head right down there in the front.
Well, and now we're gonna go to El Greco's representation of,
Mm.
well,
Mm.
it shows that that announcement came while the shepherd. Not exactly, is that right, or is it Rembrandt? Sorry, sorry. Got him out
Oh,
of,
that looks like, I had El Greco next.
that's all
I
right.
do.
Well, which one would you guys like to do? We have the two famous ones now, El Greco and Rembrandt. Who would you like to look at?
I'm at El Greco.
All right, let's go with that. All right. So, but this shows that all in one place, right? This is happening.
After the shepherds decided they'd go see what that meant.
Now I want you to look at the lamb that's beneath the manger.
It's slain.
No, he's already dead.
I was just gonna say, that's gone.
He's already dead. So it's, yeah. So isn't that interesting? So here's
Mhm.
El Greco again with that foreshadowing that we often see in art
Huh.
from this period.
Well, or
Baby
Mhm.
Jesus resting
the prime lamb.
and
They
Mary
brought
and
it.
Joseph were sitting.
And
in the
offering,
kitchen.
right. Or it's a foreshadowing of the,
She's gonna look.
it's still a sacrifice. No, I mean, I think we're saying the same thing, Judy. It's still a sacrifice.
Yes.
That's what, it's
Yes,
a sacrifice.
yes.
We can argue what that
Offering
means.
sounds
An
better.
offering does sound better.
Offering sounds better than sacrifice.
It's harder to tell because the colors are dark here. The angel, I'm assuming that that's an angel on the left in the middle, the one with their arms upraised in the white,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is
and
there
not a shepherd,
lettering above the three angels at the top, or the cherubs?
probably.
Looks like it might.
And the writing that's on the,
Yeah,
Looks
that's
like
what we were
there's
looking at.
lettering.
There's a writing above and like a ribbon that would be over there, you know, like a banner announcing something.
Gloria.
Let's just say that. We could just say that. I don't know. But
And
there's a lot in this picture that we have Mary and Joseph. We have the shepherds now coming. There's something behind Joseph's head.
Yes.
I can't see what that is. Can anybody make
It's a
that?
man, it's a little man and he's looking up to heaven. I just want, and it looks like, again, there may be some sea in front of him or land. I don't know. I wonder if that's the prophet represents the prophecy.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's a prophet.
Okay. Yes.
well, what's the orange? Is that someone's hand?
Down.
yeah, that's his hand.
I think
He's
it's
kneeling down.
yeah, I think that's his hand.
Or pants.
Baby.
We sound like.
I you'll notice the baby is not wrapped in anything. There's no swaddling clothes, no bands of cloth, no nothing.
Well, it's all big cloth laid out, ready to wrap him up. They just had to see the real thing.
And is that Mary there in the pink with the designer hat on?
Yeah, I think so.
And Joseph next to her.
Is the next to it?
But it's typical El Greco, right? Yeah, very elongated faces. That was one of his, that's his style, how he painted.
You know what the name is?
Huh.
Annunciation to the shepherds, it's supposed to
That's
be.
what I was-
I want to ask Kate, look at Joseph's left hand.
All right, so
And
which one's Joseph? Is he the one? with
he's
the
the one,
orange?
he's the one sitting next to Mary.
Yes,
and
he has.
He has a blue dress and a khaki coat behind him. Look at his left hand. And didn't the priest have a certain way they held their hands when they made a blessing?
Yes,
Does it look like that?
either that or he's doing shadow motions for the baby. I'm kidding. Yes, that looks like the way they would hold their hands with the finger up. Yeah.
And the two middle ones together. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and this shows the shepherds kind of following through on on the news they received.
Yeah.
right? This artist rendition is that the shepherds followed through and went to the manger,
Mhm.
right? You know, when you go to Bethlehem now, Shepherd's Field, there's a church built on Shepherd's Field where it's supposed to be, right? So,
But I have a question about behind Joseph's head, behind his other hand, maybe it's Mary's hand. There's a man or somebody looking straight up.
yes, that's what we were talking about. Maybe that was a representation of the prophecy that had already come, or the fulfillment of the prophecy, or a foreshadowing of something that was to come. It's hard to tell because this is very dark. But I think El Greco's work is dark naturally, and then it's also, now how old is it? It's older, and so I'm sure it doesn't, paintings, what we know about oil paintings now, they collect dust. The oil attracts dust, and so some of them are harder to see. You guys have all been to museums. You've seen these things. All right, that last one is by Rembrandt that I chose. And I think if you can look at what is similar in most of these is how the angel occupies a good half of the picture in most of them. Like that, the focus is, and the shepherds are tiny. They're other than the El Greco one, but the shepherds are tiny. And here the shepherds are tiny at the very bottom of the scene. This is interesting. Now his was in a, what is it called? You know, this was more of an etching, done in black and white, not in color. But lots of angels. I mean, some of them are so tiny. I don't even know how he did that. But then at the bottom, so there's what we assume is a shepherd running. We haven't seen this.
Yeah.
This is more clearly, and then there's a shepherd holding a sheep. Do you see that one right in the very middle
Yeah,
of the bottom, wearing a hat, I'm guessing,
yeah.
holding a sheep? He seems to be the one most interested in receiving that. Again, there's a cow in this picture.
These cows look
Yeah, I
very
was gonna say.
They're ribs.
Well, I think we're usually to fatten up. We have, these cows had to struggle. Just
They had to try to grass.
that the sheep had ate. Didn't even have cows? I don't know. Rembrandt thought they had cows.
The whole scene looks chaotic.
Yes, yes, yes. And
No.
no, it's the very opposite of that first picture we looked at, where we were saying things like peaceable kingdom and so forth. This, I just think, Lawson, some of that insight you had about the angels coming into a world that was not peaceful, what was not calm and serene. It was just so right on. And I think Rembrandt does a really good job in both how he drew his animals and his people, how he was depicting that. They were all suffering. Yeah, you can see that. You can see that. The angel, on the other hand, looks more like Father Christmas.
Mhm.
He's got a scrunchy face, which the other ones have been more serene looking, I think, lovely than this one.
Well, that whole thing, like, I come in peace,
Yeah.
right? I think that would have been a gesture. I'm not a historian that way, but I'm in my imagination, or in all the kind of movie depictions I've seen, like when someone enters, you're not holding your hand on your weapon, right? I mean, this would be someone who didn't come in peace, that if they had their hands displayed, you knew what they were doing. They weren't reaching for a knife or a sword or a stone, or today's world, a gun. But now if they have their hands and you see their hands, you can know they come in peace. They're being vulnerable. They're exposing their midsection, which is where you don't want to get stabbed or right, because that's a lot of blood loss in this area, right? So you want to know if you're being vulnerable.
Oh, no. It's just fun. Bible study, you be careful
Right, people
where to stab somebody, but
That's right. I'm sorry.
I know it's funny. What is written on that angel?
Because you get little tidbits like that. Well, if you were going to greet somebody, when you go forward, if you go forward with your hands in your pockets, I'm not as likely to want to approach you, right? Or give you a hug.
Looks like they're not,
Right. If you come forward with your arms out, I'm going to at least consider when your last COVID test was.
and let's have a hug.
You know, that's the way we treat our dogs.
Right? Will you put your hand out? Oh, that's it. Yeah.
When you're breeding a dog, you don't know, because the dog's more likely to bite you if you know.
What is on the angel's sleeve?
Would you like to say before we move on to some of our questions here?
What's on his sleeve? Is it words? Are they letters?
Oh, Lord.
Is that what it says? Lord?
The Rembrandt one.
But what's it? What's the name of it?
I don't know. I thought they were all called, the search I did was Annunciation to the Shepherds in fine art.
This is the last one,
This is the last one.
and the angel has his arms out, but on his sleeve toward you, it looks like writing.
Okay.
I just wondered if anybody could see it and what they thought it was.
I can't.
Now that
I'd
you've
have-
gotten examining these things with a,
Some strong glasses, but I can't read that.
okay, I'll be quiet, I'm
I mean,
ready.
you all might have other pictures that you, that you'd like from that, in that idea, a favorite nativity, a favorite rendering. I mean, in our homes, most of us have a creche. Have 2 nativity sets. Which is,
One for each town that you lived in.
no, it's just ridiculous, but I like them because they're all different, and and many of them come from different traditions. And so they represent the characters slightly different or whatever. And some are only parts because I like to go to thrift stores, and if I see one thing, I just buy it. So I have a couple of just Jesus in mangers, because that's all that's left. Yes. Yes,
Some places that would have you arrested,
for having a creche.
different kinds of backgrounds and different kinds of brown babies, white babies,
Oh.
In this day and age.
I did an Advent study once with a group of people, but these kids, all their toys. So there was like a Buzz Lightyear, and there was like a Lego person, and it was adorable. And and it just makes us, we think we know who the characters are. It's like you saying, Kate, what animal would you be at the nativity, right? What animal is that? But it was like saying, well, who does that represent? I mean, Buzz Lightyear, they had him bring in a gift because he was from another place, right? And then that just like different, a Pokey and a Gumby and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, it shakes us up a little bit sometimes to see something different than what we have in our head. This is how it happened. Like we don't know. We have Luke's version as recorded. That's what we have. And there are big pieces of that we don't know. I'm glad we get the news of what the angels say. They don't come and say, wake up. They come with the normal angel blessing. Do not be afraid. This is out of the ordinary. And this is some of the things I want you, when we read this chapter, is how often when we are confronted with something out of the ordinary is our first response. What is our first response? I'm asking the group now, what is your first response when you're confronted with something out of the ordinary?
Help me, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your emotional response, right? Are you afraid?
Yes.
Yeah, right. And so sometimes out of fear, this is what happens. I fell down on Saturday. Todd and I were in Greenville, and I tripped over my own foot, and fell like flat on my face, right, in downtown Greenville. And then, so what's Todd's first response is it comes out kind of like anger, because he's afraid that I've hurt myself, but he doesn't really have, I shouldn't really say that in front of everybody, but like, it's not, that he doesn't care for me. I know he does. I think it's because he cares for me so much. But he doesn't, his palate, I would just say, is not as full as some people's. His emotional palate is not as full.
What did he say? What the hell?
What the hell? Pick up your feet. I mean, while he's picking me up and asking me if I'm okay, but you know, it comes out kind of a little sideways. I know that. I have been married to him for 47 years. I know that, but you know, but still, it's just kind of interesting to note, right?
That would have been Jack's response.
Yes, yeah.
But you know what? No offense, but I think men react like that because they are maybe a little embarrassed or fearful. I'm not sure. Whereas a woman, I think we're more, nurturing, caring.
Sometimes.
What would you say to Eloise? Thought you had to pick her up.
I'm sure he's had to.
I'm sure I've had.
Yeah,
I was very gentle and kind.
of course. Good answer.
Remember, I'm a token male.
Yes, that's right. He doesn't have to represent all men. But I think that's one response. We
The
can,
universal man.
in fear, we can be angry. In fear, we can withdraw.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know what this is about, so I don't feel comfortable, capable. I'm gonna back away, so I don't do the wrong, that's me,
Yeah.
because I don't want to do the wrong thing.
Put up a shield.
Yes, we want to protect ourselves. That's one, right? Some people rush in when there's a fire, you know.
Well, see, that
I
would be
bet,
more,
you know. Is that you, Kate? You just like,
well,
you
it's
know,
a fire. I'm scared of fire, so maybe not fire, but if somebody has fallen or it looks like there's somebody being picked on or something happening, I'm go charging in as if I know what's going on, and I usually obviously don't, but I tend to do that. I don't know why. It's probably ridiculous, harmful to my own being.
Yeah.
Huh?
so you identify with that shepherd then who's like fully embracing this angel, you know, and looking forward, like in some of these pictures, there were shepherds who,
Wait, you froze. There you
yeah, frozen. Yeah. Oh, well, froze. No, we're actually frozen. We're unstable.
go. Okay.
All right.
So I was fascinated by your putting Martin Luther King's dream
Mhm.
speech after this. So he was, so why did you choose that? I
Yeah,
think
I think because Isaiah, so if we want to get there, I put in our notes some history of shepherds and sheep and so forth. So those are there for you to read them and why they were so special and why shepherds would have been important. And this image of shepherding, so important to both Jewish tradition. I mean, it was a very common occupation, right? Even if you lived in Jerusalem, you knew who a shepherd was. Bedouins had been wandering all that land that we now call the Middle East with flocks of sheep. Sheep have to graze. They are wandering, and we're not, the people of Israel, in some ways, wanderers, right? They want, since the time God called Abraham out of Ur and wandered him over, and he and Sarah into a new land, and that since the time of Jacob and Esau, since all of that wandering, Moses and the people of Israel out of Egypt, and then all the wandering between Babylon and Assyria and Egypt, and this is, and then what came to be known as the diaspora later, right? Jews who had been dispersed to so many places in the world. They were a wandering people. They are a wandering Aramaic, and remember, that's the text that Abraham uses. And so this idea that they would know shepherds and that this would be such a touchstone, such a touchstone connecting what this new thing is that God's doing in the world with the old thing that God has always done. And I just haven't spent a lot of time just kind of living in that was what was, so I'm getting to the Martin Luther King part.
Mhm.
Okay. So I the thing was, I asked, that I said is the already and the not yet of Christmas, or this is not my language, this is Krister Stendhal's language that he wrote about for Paul in the already and not yet of the coming of Jesus. We know we have the assurance of our salvation, but yet the kingdom is not fully realized, right? We live in this already and not yet kind of world all the time. And is that not true? So I chose that Isaiah reading, right, from the 6th century BCE. A voice cries out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a high uneven ground. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all the people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. And then I chose the I Have a Dream speech because Dr. King quotes from Isaiah frequently, and he did in this speech, where he says, now is time to make real the promises. Is that the word? Let's see. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation. He doesn't, I'm trying to find the exact thing that I wanted to highlight. That's not
This
it.
is part from Justice Rules down.
Yes. Is that on the last?
That's,
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation.
And then at the very end below that, no, we are not satisfied and we will not be
Okay.
satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. And then he goes on to share his dream. That is the part that really captures me every time.
Mhm.
This dream, and this is partly what I preached about on Sunday, so it was in the top of my head, I think, as I was putting together these notes. That the dream, and then on the top of the last page, I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
Mhm.
This is an echo of Isaiah's dream.
Mhm.
This is an echo of what the shepherds heard, I believe, that night as they're keeping their sheep. That's what they heard. This is what Mary heard in her song.
Mhm.
What Elizabeth heard, Zechariah heard somewhere in his knowing place. This is what John the Baptist was raised to know. This is what Jesus proclaimed everywhere he went. And those who came after him have continued that. And yet we know that that's what I mean. Christmas has to be always coming,
Mhm.
otherwise we'll lose hope.
Yep.
Christmas has to be always coming, otherwise we will lose hope.
Mhm.
And that can be frustrating for us. Yes,
Sure.
very frustrating. But the promise is still there. The promise has not changed. And what is it that makes it so, that stands out, that lets it resist time? What is it that resists time in the telling of this story? We can hear it every year. And I mean, I know I'm a weirdo, and I like looking forward to hearing it. And it never gets old to me. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't get old to other people. I get that. But
Well, I thought that was a wonderful bridge
thank you.
between, between something so far in the past, but so remembered, and to put it in the context of our modern society in America. I just think that was a wonderful bridge. I think
Thank you.
Mhm. I think
Well, whatever we, go ahead.
Martin Luther King was translating the language of the angels into our American Southern English.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
He did not, it's clear that he understood the scripture, not just the words of the scripture. I think in many ways he understood the intent of the scripture. And that could put it in the sense when people hear that, both for those who are suffering, groups of people can hear that and I'm frozen probably, but they have the ability to hear that and to translate that into their own lives, either as someplace that calls us up short, right, and causes us toward progress, whatever that means, or someplace where that gives us hope that God's intent for us is not that. It is not God's intent for people to live in a segregated, oppressive
World.
King was working to set his people free, and we know Jesus came to
Right.
set us free.
Yes. Yeah. Now, those are big examples, y'all. I chose big examples. I get that. And then our own
They're
lives,
good.
but in our own lives, there are also examples, right? And you may not be able to like immediately bring them to thought, but I ask you as you go through these next several days and you hear these texts again read or said in a Christmas pageant or however that's, you're going to be part of that in your families or while you're even by yourself. What is that for you? Where is there still the already and not yet of Christmas? How do we find ourselves? Where can we receive the message that the angels received, the message that Elizabeth, Zechariah, Elizabeth, Joseph, they received those messages. And how do we receive them? And the other question I had in the study notes was, have you ever been called to be a messenger?
Hmm.
I might not even know it.
Well, might not. Or you might have been rejected. I don't know,
I mean, I think it's entirely possible. And maybe even more possible that we're called to be messengers without ever knowing it.
And can you say more about that? Just by the way you act or, the choices you make and the
Exactly.
company you keep and the,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a problem with proselytizing in general. I don't like that word, but I think we all convey the intent of proselytization by how we act, that sort of thing. And so that's very consistent with the idea of being messengers without necessarily knowing it.
Yeah.
And it may be more.
That's too, haven't we conveyed messages to our children?
Yeah.
grandchildren?
We have. I hope they've been good
I was
ones.
gonna say, I hope they've been good.
To our children, our grandchildren,
And in your case, Jen, your great grandchildren.
and great grandchildren,
Yeah.
indeed.
Well, going back to the already and not yet, I was thinking of what Judy was talking about yesterday in our DOK Zoom meeting about touched people with the gifts. And that's the already reaching out and giving that hope. But the not yet is, it's too bad we have to do that there are people who are in such need that they can't provide for their children Christmas gifts. So.
And that's what I've been struggling with this whole season. So I said a couple weeks ago, having so much.
And we missed that. Say it again, baby. You froze for a minute.
No, I was just saying that I've been struggling this season with having so much, which isn't a lot, but we're certainly fortunate to live our nice middle class lives. And yet seeing people who are struggling so badly to provide for their children at this season and all seasons. I mean, it's not just at Christmas. It's all
Every
year long.
day.
Every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And this morning on the news, I hear that, the Taliban is now going to restrict women from school. I mean, that we knew it was around the block a few times. I think we knew it was coming. It's not that. I just like that. It's so far from me, and yet I feel so deeply about that. Knowing what privileges I do have, and how that's a point of prayer for me. Maybe there are things I can do. I don't know yet, but I'm just saying, I hear that news. At the same time, I hear God come among us and working the wonders that God works in our community with your hands. So,
Jackson County is in such terrible straits.
I can't hear her.
she just said northern Jackson County is in very terrible straits financially, and the resources that are available, I'm
Well,
assuming.
no, the people.
Yes, but because they're not able to access them, or there aren't resources.
No, their resources, it's just that the drug situation
Oh.
in Jackson County is so severe.
Which brings into the equation, particularly what Lynn said. You know, some of the results of what you're talking about are because of societal things,
Yes,
what the government
generational.
does, or we all do, whatever. And a lot of it is because they don't try to take care of themselves. They don't
Right, no,
feel
they
their
don't.
own responsibility.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do without people taking some responsibility.
And the addiction.
Well-
Middle of the 20 to 35-year-olds in northern Jackson County is unbelievable. The jail is full.
Yeah.
And they can't, anyway.
There isn't the treatment programs and so forth to do that.
Well, they might be,
Well-
but
Well, I mean, there's only so many ways to make money in Jackson County.
Right, and it's.
And I'm just telling you, selling meth makes a lot more money than working at the paper plant.
I was.
Or-
Yeah, but until somebody realizes, until these, well, Avery should be in here to talk to you about this. This is her major, but until the people who realize that the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train coming to mow them down, it's hard to get them to find that they have the strength or the ability or the wherewithal or anything to move forward. I mean, if all you can do is see that you might get a piece of toast or bacon tomorrow when everybody around you is eating, or most people are, you tend to, or at least I would tend to, not have a whole lot of hope about how it was going to get better. I think you can make these people, or not make them, help these people. I'm hoping to do some of that when I get back, with the school that I was talking about before. And because it starts there. It's not something where we can just walk in and say to a bunch of teenagers, look, you haven't had it so well, but now we're going to fix it for you, because they won't believe you. But if you start with the young children and you work with them, my prayer is that they will turn a corner and have more of what they need and understand the love that's out there. I don't know. Don't get me.
Well, I mean, our job is to tell people that there are angels and that there are angels around us. There is good news to tell. There is good news to tell, and we need to tell it.
There evidently is some sort of a group that is going into the jail system in Jackson County. Because yesterday, as I was checking out at Lowe's in the garden center, this one lady was the checkout clerk, and I was the only one out in the area. And she said to me, "Oh, I like your necklace." I said, "Oh, well, it's my heart." You know how I am. I just probably laughed and said, "Oh, it's my heart." And she kind of teared up, and she said she said, "Well, my daughter is doing so much better." And I said, "Well, that's great. Good." And she said she was in jail and found out she was pregnant. And she said she had been doing drugs and selling drugs. And she said, but she got in a Bible study group. And she said, she is out and she's doing good. And I said, well, now, isn't that a wonderful Christmas story? I said, that just made my Christmas, and I hope it makes yours. And she started crying. And I said, well, who was the Bible study group? She said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, that's wonderful. So there are things going on.
There always is something going on.
So we
We
need,
can't,
you
we
know,
have to
we
focus
need
on
do
what's
it.
going on. I mean, we have to hold what is, shepherds were still poor. Here's what I'll say. The shepherds went away from that manger. They were still poor.
Sure.
They went away from there. They didn't have anything more than what they went with, except
Their hearts.
their hearts, to use your word, Judy. And so I know that we want the Christmas story to be the George Bailey story. We want it to be, It's a Wonderful Life. We want it to be that. We want it to be that Dorothy gets home and everything is all right. I mean, I think that's what we can learn from shepherds. They still went back and tended their sheep, but somehow their life was different.
And we need to be hands and feet to try to help.
Did you read my sermon for Christmas Day? I feel like you just read my sermon. All right, that's so funny. It's amazing.
I will have to call.
Maybe you can just preach.
I guess
All right, y'all, I have loved being with you all. I have loved these sessions, and I hope that if continuing our work on listening to God together, that the work of spiritual gifts and what they are and how we live into that, I hope you'll come to that or follow us on Zoom in the recorded versions.